Thank you for selecting the Minnesota Board of Dentistry's tutorial for a limited general license for internationally educated dentists. This application pathway is for an internationally educated dentist that is seeking a limited general license in the state of Minnesota. This tutorial will take you through each step. These steps and requirements are listed on our website. To find this application, first you need to navigate to the Minnesota Board of Dentistry's website. You may type in our URL of mn.gov/boards/dentistry or use a browser, either Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, to search Minnesota Board of Dentistry. Once there, click the New Applicant tab. Then you will see a blue box on the left side. Click Limited General License. On this page, it will go through, in great detail, each step required to obtain this license. In this tutorial, we will also go over these steps and requirements. Please note, even before you start Step 1, know that you must have either a United States Social Security number or a United States Taxpayer Identification Number for us to proceed with the initial review of your credentials. If you do not have this, we cannot proceed with the review. For Step 1, the applicant needs to contact the Foreign Credentials Services of America. They offer different types of evaluations for individuals. The type of evaluation you need is the most in-depth of professional licensing or certification for medical doctors. From there, you will see the Minnesota Board of Dentistry listed. Once you complete their application, they create a report and send it to the Minnesota Board of Dentistry. The board then determines whether the educational credentials are equivalent to those in the United States and whether or not they meet the consideration of the board. Please note, when reviewing the education of a dental graduate from a non-accredited dental program, the board is evaluating the dentist's dental degree program for equivalency. The board requires passing grades in all subjects. This is defined as a U.S. grade C or higher. The next slide will have more details about the IED Educational Review Form, linked here. The report will cover the credit hours required and the candidate's actual hours in areas of clinical lab courses, non-clinical courses, and pre-dental core course hours. It will also include your dental school's location, your graduation date, your GPA, and any U.S. CODA postgraduate studies, compulsory rotations, and any pass or grace points. The most important thing to note is that there is a total of credit hours required that must equal 204.5. If the candidate does not meet the total in clinical hours of 163.5 and non-clinical hours of 41 for a total of 204.5 hours, the board cannot proceed with a review. On this and the next several slides, we will talk about the official documentation required to initiate the credential review process. If any documents are not in English, you must include an official certified translation. Please use Texan translation, which is linked on the board's website under the steps for limited general license application. Please note that all documents will be discarded after processing. You will need a check made payable to the Minnesota Board of Dentistry for $200. Please note, this is non-refundable. You will need to have passed the National Dental Board examination, of which the Integrated National Board exam is accepted, and proof of passing the TOEFL within the previous 2 years. You will need to fill out the Internationally Educated Dentist pre-application. We will go over each section of the pre-application on the next 3 slides. The first section of the pre-application is titled Background. Here is where you fill out your demographics. We ask that you print legibly or fill in the information on the application before you print. Please be sure to use your full legal name, as we do not accept any shortened versions or nicknames. You must fill in the Social Security number or individual taxpayer identification number. Without it, we cannot move forward. If any documents you are submitting use a previous name, be sure to include proof of legal name change, such as a marriage certificate, divorce decree, or other legal government document. Be sure to list each country in which you have been licensed as a dental professional. Please include your license number and the date range of licensure from issue date to expiration date, if applicable. Each section must be filled out accurately. Please make sure your primary email is one you consistently view, as that is our main mode of communication. The next section of the application is your official practice information. For the address, be sure to include a unit or suite number if applicable, and your personal practice email if applicable. Each portion of the application must be filled out accurately. Next is the last page of the pre-application. Here you will be required to sign an attestation with a notary present. This is a legal statement asserting that all questions are answered truthfully and all documents are authentic and not fraudulent. Again, you must sign this in the presence of a notary. If it is not officially and properly notarized, it will not be accepted. Continuing on with the documentation required, you need either a curriculum vitae or resume attached. You also need a certificate of completion for the course on infection control linked on our website. Your dental degree transcripts need to be sent directly from the school to the dental board, either by email at dental.board.ied@state.mn.us, or an original sealed transcript mailed to our board office. That address can be found at the top of the pre-application. Also, you need to send an original license verification or a letter of good standing showing proof of practicing clinical dentistry. This also needs to be sent from the licensure authority to the dental board, either by email or a hard copy mailed at the address previously mentioned. This must include the name, issue date, and license number, as well as any information on discipline or corrective actions. Reminder: for any documents not in English, include an official certified translation. To review, for Step 2, detailed in the previous 5 slides, this list is all the things you need to include for your official documentation. Please do not send any materials until you can include them all as a complete documentation packet. Once all materials and documentation listed in Step 2 are submitted to the board, they will then be reviewed by the board's Licensure and Credentials Committee in their closed session. During closed session, the committee will review the Foreign Credential Services of America evaluation and determine whether the international education is equivalent to that of a U.S. CODA-accredited dental program. The committee meets once monthly and in closed session. Closed session, which includes deliberations, is confidential. Participation is limited to committee members only. In general, a determination is made during the committee meeting and will then be delivered to the candidate after conclusion of the meeting. Please note, this is a one-time only credential review. Subsequent requests for review will not be accepted. If the committee determines that the international education is equivalent to that of a U.S. CODA-accredited dental program, then the candidate may proceed to Step 4, where the following requirements will need to be met. This starts with a submission of patient cases. For patient records, they must not be over 5 years old. If they are not in English, an official certified translation is required. Once the patient records, with complete record-keeping forms, are submitted, they will be forwarded to the board's Licensure and Credentials Committee for review. If the committee determines that the patient records submitted, along with the forms, are adequate, the candidate will be notified accordingly and a virtual interview will be scheduled. The virtual interview will test knowledge on dental practice and include categorical areas. The virtual interview is scheduled for 1 hour, and the candidate will be notified of the committee's determination upon completion of the interview. The next 2 slides will talk about the documents linked here of record-keeping instructions and record-keeping forms that you will need to fill out to go along with your patient records. Please note that incomplete patient records will not be accepted. The record-keeping instructions document goes into detail about what the committee is evaluating about your understanding of the record-keeping rule and the necessity to document those items. There is a link to the Minnesota chapter 3100.9600. Each of these items must be found in your records. This document also shows what should be redacted for privacy purposes. Please review this document for further instruction. There are 5 record-keeping forms on our website that you will need, each corresponding to the individual record required. Here we will look at one to highlight the format. The header will ask you to include your name, the dates of service received for the patient, and the patient's initials. Afterwards, the form outlines definitions and covers each subpart with columns outlining whether the material is present, not present, or not applicable, along with any comments needed. Please remember, incomplete patient records are not accepted. If your submitted patient records are deemed satisfactory and you pass the interview, the board will grant you permission to sit for one of the board-approved clinical exams. The candidate must pass this exam within 18 months, with no more than 2 fails and 1 remediation. If the clinical exams are passed, the next step will be to complete the Minnesota Jurisprudence Exam, which covers the Minnesota Administrative Rules. Details for this exam and our tutorial are on our board's website. To find this, navigate back to our main website. Click the New Applicant tab at the top. On the left side, there will be a blue box with different tabs. Choose Exams. Then there will be a page with jurisprudence information, including a link to our tutorial. If you are successful in passing the clinical exam, as well as the Minnesota jurisprudence exam, you will then be able to complete the Limited General License application form and submit a written agreement with a Minnesota licensed dentist. Also know that the committee must approve the supervising dentist before they will grant the license. The main requirements for a supervising dentist is that they must be licensed in Minnesota for at least 5 consecutive years and must not have any corrective or disciplinary action within the previous 5 years. The supervising dentist must agree to supervise the limited general licensed dentist for at least 1,100 hours annually for a period of 3 consecutive years. The supervising dentist is not allowed to oversee more than 2 limited general licensed dentists in one dental facility. Please note, you are responsible for finding the Minnesota licensed dentist that will supervise you. When the application and submitted written agreement are accepted by the board, you will be granted a limited general license. You will receive confirmation via email and also receive your legal renewal certificate in the mail. This legal document needs to be displayed in any location you practice. The board staff will send you several board-approved documents that will clarify your scope of practice, how to write a written agreement, what the responsibility is of your Minnesota supervising dentist, and how to petition for an unrestricted license at the end of your 3-year term. When you apply for an unrestricted license at the end of your 3-year term, this can be no sooner than 90 days and no later than 1 year from the end of your 3-year term. Your supervising dentist will need to send a written performance evaluation for dental licensure recommendation. Additionally, you will need to provide a professional development portfolio that includes completing at least 25 hours each year toward the total of 75 hours that is required for compliance. There needs to be at least 45 hours in fundamental activities and no more than 30 hours in elective activities. Furthermore, there must be verification of 1,100 hours completed for each of the 3 consecutive years, and there must not be any corrective or disciplinary action in place. We have gone over in detail how to apply for a limited general license with the Minnesota Board of Dentistry. If the LGL pathway is not an option, the board offers alternative pathways in seeking dental licensure in the state of Minnesota. One option is the PASS pathway through the University of Minnesota. This is a program for advanced dental standing students. On our website, there is a link to the program offered by the university. If you want to seek out this pathway, you will need to go through the program at the University of Minnesota, and any questions you have would be directed to them. A second pathway option would be a specialty license. For this, you would need to have completed a U.S. CODA accredited postdoctoral program in a recognized specialty area. Those will be listed on the next slide. And either have been certified by a specialty examining board or passed the clinical exam approved by the Minnesota Board of Dentistry. These are the areas recognized for a specialty license. A third option is the limited or full faculty licensure pathway. This information is located on the Minnesota Board of Dentistry's main website under the New Applicant tab, Dentist, and scrolling all the way down to the bottom of the page. Please note that with limited faculty licensure, there is no private practice. With full faculty licensure, you may practice privately, but this is contingent on maintaining at least 50% appointment with the university. We hope this tutorial has been informative. If you have any questions, please contact the board staff by emailing dental.board.ied@state.mn.us.